Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Christine Dixon of The Ordinary Sacred. And you might hear it in my voice. I'm a little under the weather today with a pretty nasty cold. But I did want to just make a quick video and read a passage that I really appreciate from a book I just finished called The Woman They Wanted by Shannon Harris. The subtitle is Shattering the Illusion of the Good Christian Wife. Shout out to Lauren if you're watching this. Thank you for the recommendation of this book. Her experience really resonates with mine, but even if you have not come out of a conservative Christian background, maybe you still grew up under cultures and systems that oppressed you, or maybe you had to choose belonging in some way over your authenticity and are making your way back to that. So this could still apply to you, whether you are male or female or whatever your history is. So if you're not familiar with Shannon Harris, she is or was is the ex-wife of Joshua Harris, who wrote the book I Kissed Dating Goodbye. And this was all the rage back in the 90s, I think. So some people who are Gen X, millennials, who are in the kind of conservative Christian world might remember this. It took kind of purity culture to another level of, instead of dating around, you would only court, I think is the word he would use, one person with the intention of marriage, and there would be no kissing until marriage, until the altar. Often people wouldn't even hold hands with each other. And there, as you might imagine, there have been all kinds of fallout, all kinds of problems that have come from this. And so Joshua Harris himself has renounced everything he said in the book. He has taken it out of print. He feels incredibly apologetic for what he spread. So he actually published that book before he met his wife. And she talks about it being in some ways this kind of arranged marriage of these head pastors who were over them, and he was their protege and kind of put them together. Interesting thing is that Shannon did not come from this ultra-religious background. And so she talks about finding herself after 15, 20 years in this world of being oppressed. Like, how did I get here? How did this happen to me? So even someone who wasn't indoctrinated growing up can get kind of caught up in it and kind of sell their soul or give again their authenticity for belonging in some sense. And I highly recommend reading the whole book. It's really, really well written. Lots of short chapters, which to me makes it easier to read. She talks a lot about coming back and to her inner wisdom, that she had abdicated her authority to all of these church authorities and to her husband as a woman. And this journey of coming back and regaining her inner wisdom. I'm just going to read one paragraph from the chapter, My Wisdom, My Knowing, on page 187. She says, life is a feeling experience. We experience life through our bodies. It accompanies every choice, decision, interaction, and moment of our lives. When a woman believes, I would say a woman or a man, believes that her body is a problem or her feelings are wrong, she will naturally try and separate from herself. Just a side note, my experience within especially ultra-conservative Christianity is just this constant message of you cannot trust yourself, you cannot trust your body, you cannot trust your emotions. There are verses, the heart is deceitful above all else, and or the heart is wicked and the flesh is weak. and all of these messages that you can't trust your body, you can't trust your emotions. Again, that causes a disconnection from our inner wisdom. So I had the same exact experience as her, this returning back, reconnecting to my inner wisdom. It was like I was untethered. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know who I was, authentic. Who am I? I don't know. I'm whoever the person in front of me wants me to be. I'm whoever the authorities tell me to be, right? A good sheep. And so coming back into that wisdom is really about reclaiming, not vilifying the body and the emotions. Disconnecting from those two is disconnecting from our own wisdom. So Shannon says she may spend years hating her body, shaming herself for the way she feels. Yes. Or neglecting her needs. Story of my most of my life. To separate from yourself is to stop knowing yourself. And to stop knowing yourself is to fall asleep to yourself. Man, is that the story of so many women, and I think men too. We just follow our duty, whatever we're supposed to be as a woman, we're supposed to be as a man, whatever is acceptable in our culture, whatever our culture is, right? Maybe we are born into a gay body, right? And we have to suppress our authenticity in order to belong, and especially in a conservative community. Or maybe we have high sensitivity, and that's, emotions are evil. So you are evil if you're emotional. And having your own needs and being in touch with your own anger, right? That gives you self-agency, tells you when something's wrong. Disconnecting from that allows us to be moldable, allows us to be sheep, right? To just go along with whatever we're being told. And it's a really terrible experience to be disconnected from ourselves. The chapter that I really want to read, however, is on page 211, and it's called The Giving Tree. I'm going to not read the entire thing, but some parts of it. So some of you might be familiar with the children's book, The Giving Tree, and that's what this chapter is based on. She's going to tell that story at the beginning. So this is on page 211. Shannon says, in The Giving Tree, a little boy became friends with a tree. He would climb up her trunk, swing from her branches, and devour her apples. And the story tells us the tree was happy. The boy went away and forgot about the tree, but he came back later as a young man and asked the tree for money. The tree had no money, but she gave him her apples so he could sell them. And the story tells us the tree was happy. The boy went away again and came back years later, this time wanting a home and a wife. The tree could not give him a home or a wife, but she gave him her branches so he could build a home. And the story tells us the tree was happy. The boy went away again for a long time, and when he finally returned, he asked for a boat. The tree had no boat, but he gave him her trunk so that he could make a canoe. And then the story tells us the tree was happy, but not really. The boy went away one last time for a long, long time, and when he returned, he was a very old man. The tree was sorry she had nothing left to give him, since now she was just an old stump. But the old man said he was tired. He was tired now, and stumps are good for resting. So he sat down on her, and the story ends. And Shannon says, this story always felt a bit confusing to me as a child. Was it a story about a generous tree, or was it a story about a selfish boy? Or was the story about a tree who gave too much? Well, here is my version of the story. Once there was a young woman who became friends with a church. The church leaders said to the young woman, "Can we have your past? Give us your old life. Let us take it so that we can make you new, because that will make God happy. So the woman gave up her old life so God would be happy. And then the church leaders said, can we have your money? We need it to pay our pastors, to keep our programs running, because that will make God happy. So the woman gave her money to the church so that God would be happy. And then the church leaders said to the woman, can we have your talents? We're making a new music label, and if you sing only for us and no one else, that will make God happy. So the woman gave her singing to the church so that God would be happy. And then the church leaders said, give us your children, because we will need their devotion and money and talents one day, and that will make God happy. So the woman started to give up her children. But then she realized that the church leaders were greedy and would take from her children the same thing they had taken from her. And she could not let that happen. So she left. That's her story in a nutshell. It's interesting how we will allow certain behavior for ourselves sometimes, but then once it begins happening to our children or other people that we love, it's more clear. Oh, wait a minute, this is not okay. And I'm going to read a little bit more from this chapter, but I just want to make a side note. Again, as I was reading the Giving Tree story, so many people see it as just this, I guess, beautiful story of this self-sacrificing tree who loved the boy unconditionally. And it's so interesting because to me, now that I read it, it's such a clear picture of codependency, of the giver and the taker coming together, that some of us have learned to protect ourselves by giving, giving, giving. I am only worth something if I'm giving, giving, giving to someone else and pleasing them. And other people have learned to protect themselves by taking, taking, taking. I must take, take, take for myself, because if I don't take, 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 I won't have anything. And when you get these two together, the giver and the taker, you have what we often call a codependent relationship. And they agree with each other because this one says, I need to give everything of myself to you. And this one says, you need to give everything of yourself to me. and so they agree. And that's why they have this very dysfunctional bond where one person is being spent and the other is taking and still never satisfied. And so there has to be a different way. It's not healthy, as I hope it's clear. So here's another passage that just a couple more paragraphs in this chapter. On page 212 at the bottom, Shannon says, self-preservation is not selfish. It is smart. I just did an IFS session on myself with a part because I'm sick right now and I have very little to give to my family, to my community. There's a part that feels like I don't have worth if I don't give. And then at the bottom, it was this message, if I take care of myself, I am selfish. And I can't be selfish because that's the ultimate shame. That's the ultimate badness. It deserves hell. It deserves shunning, rejection, abandonment. So this message that self-preservation or taking care of ourselves in any way is selfish, to me, is such an insidious message. It's such a cultural burden, a deeply layered burden. My part was telling me when I was asking about how to unburden it, it was showing me this picture that it exists like in the very fabric of every cell of my being, that it was ingrained in me so repeatedly by religion, parenting, culture, that to take care of myself or to have nothing to give other people is so selfish and bad that it's like I need a whole cleansing of every cell in my body. So it's not so easy to get rid of this programming. Okay, but so beautifully, Shannon is pushing back on it. She says self-preservation is not selfish. It is smart. All living things do the work of self-preservation. Nature shows us the ways of protection, rhythm, and balance. A tree has a thick layer of bark. A turtle has a shell. A bee has a sting. A woman's life is a balancing act, no doubt, and there are times when immense giving is inevitable. But we should never give our souls away, not even to our children. All throughout our lives, we need to stay connected to ourselves at the core. And interestingly, this IFS session I had in my own system just this morning, the conclusion at the end was that kind of these parts who were burdened by taking care of ourselves as selfish, the only thing they would agree to at the end was, okay, if taking care of ourselves helps us have the capacity to give more afterward, then we'll be okay. And in some ways, that is the balance. In taking care of ourselves, it's the only way that we can ultimately, in the big picture, care for others. And as the saying goes, give from overflow. And most of my system knows that now. I'm going to continue at the bottom of page 213. Humans are not meant to live like this in constant dissociation and denial, smothering and silencing the messages of our bodies and our spirits. This can lead to sickness, disease, and even death. I wonder what would the giving tree have been like if she had been an empowered tree. The empowered tree stands strong and grounded. She feels her roots running deep underground and cool water running through her veins. The sunshine and birds frolic on her branches. In her seasons, she provides shade, beauty, nuts, and fruit. And when the boy asks for all her branches to make a house, she knows he does not see her greater value. Sorry, boy, she says, smiling. You will have to find another way. She is green and vibrant and healthy and happy. And when no one is looking, she magically turns sunlight into food and oxygen. She is doing all that she was created to do. Oh, I'm so moved by that. The empowered tree. Someone needs to write a new book, a corollary to the giving tree, the empowered tree, right? And how, this description of just the majestic beauty, glory, the amount that the tree is able to give by saying, no, you cannot cut down all my branches. No, you cannot have my trunk. I will stay rooted in the ground, and I will then provide you with shade. I will give from overflow. I will provide you with nuts and fruit and oxygen. Yeah, it's just such a beautiful picture. And I offer this to you, whether you're a man or a woman, if you got the message that you only have worth if you're giving to other people. Again, if you're on this side of the pendulum, if you have more taking parts, you may not need to hear this message. What I've learned is that depending on our system, sometimes, if we're on this side of the pendulum, we're giving, like the giving tree. We need to hear this empowering message that we need to give to ourselves first and give to others from overflow. If you're on the side of the boy, you're essentially the boy in the story, taking from others. You also need to hear kind of the same message of, instead of taking from others, give to yourself, become empowered, right? So I guess the message is similar, but you're kind of coming from different extremes, right? Instead of giving, I need to take, or I need to take and give to myself. Instead of taking, I need to stop taking and give to myself. And then give to others from overflow. And take when we're fully incapacitated. There are times when we take, when we are ill, when we are grieving. But for the most part, we are in a state where we are our own primary caregiver and we turn toward ourselves, we give, we meet the needs of our body, we support our body's healing tendencies. That's why I'm likely needing to postpone the workshop that's coming this Friday on healing inner critics, to support my tree so that I can give much more, hopefully, the following Friday. So I'll likely need to model this message, but I hope you appreciated that. If you relate to this experience, whatever side of the pendulum you may be on, go ahead and leave me a comment below. If you have any questions, you're welcome to leave those too.